Hello, and welcome back to another episode on the Grace-Filled Leader podcast. Over the past few episodes, we've explored the Enneagram Triads in some detail, the Instinctive Triad, the Feeling Triad, and the Thinking Triad. Well, today we're going to recap what we've learned about these triads and discuss practical ways to integrate this knowledge into your daily life and leadership. Whether you're new to the Enneagram or looking to deepen your understanding, this episode is for you, so let's dive in. Welcome to the Grace-Filled Leader podcast. Do you want better work-life balance? Do you get stuck in patterns of perfectionism and people-pleasing? Have you always been an overachiever but never really felt good enough, no matter how much outward success you achieve? Do you want more time for the things that matter most? Well, you are in the right place. Here on the Grace-Filled Leader podcast, we focus on spirit-driven success and share the secrets to having better work-life balance as a busy woman in leadership. Here you will learn how to set boundaries like a boss, find peace of mind, and reclaim your time for the things that matter most. Hi, I'm Tanya, a wife, mom, leader, and certified Christian life coach. For most of my life, I tried to find worthiness through achievement. I spent decades people-pleasing and pouring myself into my work. I was looking for my value through the approval of others. This led me to feel burned out, empty, and exhausted. I had no time or energy for myself or my family. I realized that I was wasting time and energy looking for validation in all the wrong places. But my life changed when I finally surrendered and God showed me a different way. It is my mission to help you start living the abundant life God has for you. If you're ready to become fueled by grace and find freedom from people-pleasing, if you're ready to multiply your time and impact as a Christian woman in leadership, this podcast is for you. Roll up your sleeves, sister friends. It's time to get after it. Before we get to our recap of the Enneagram Triads and some tips for integrating this knowledge into our daily lives, I want to remind you of the perspective that I've shared on several of the episodes about the Enneagram and how it very naturally partners with our pursuit of living a more godly life, being more grace-giving, and growing into the giftings that God uniquely designed us with. What we don't know about ourselves can ultimately hurt us and those around us. Working with the Enneagram allows us to develop the self-awareness that helps us understand who we are and why we perceive and relate to the world the way that we do. Our past wounds and the beliefs that we formed shape the way that we see and respond to our circumstances. And if we don't develop an understanding of our own history and our responses to it, we will be imprisoned to it, blindly making the same mistakes and coping in the same ways we always have. But once we learn how and why we see and respond to the world the way that we do, we can be more intentional about getting out of our own way, and we can listen to the Holy Spirit's guiding to become more of the person that God created us to be. Now, let's start with a quick recap of the three Enneagram Triads. We have first the Instinctive Triad, which includes types 8, 9, and 1. This triad is primarily driven from a gut instinct. They have a need for control and they struggle with the predominant emotion of anger. Type 8 is the challenger. They are assertive, strong-willed, and protective. Type 9 is the peacemaker. They are easygoing, supportive, and accommodating. And type 1 is the reformer. They are principled, purposeful, and perfectionistic. The second triad is the feeling or the heart triad, and this includes types 2, 3, and 4. They are driven primarily by their emotions. They have a need for attention, and they struggle most with shame. Type 2 is the helper. They are caring, generous, and people-pleasing. Type 3 is the achiever. They are goal-oriented, adaptable, and image-conscious. Type 4 is the Individualist. They are very creative, sensitive, and introspective. The third triad is the Thinking Triad, or the Head Triad, and this includes types 5, 6, and 7. They lead with their brains or their thoughts, so they're driven primarily from thinking. They have a need for security, and they struggle with anxiety. Type 5 is the Investigator. They are very perceptive, innovative, and tend to be somewhat private. Type 6 is the Loyalist. They are responsible, trustworthy, and security-oriented. And finally, type 7 is the Enthusiast. The Enthusiast is, of course, enthusiastic, spontaneous, and adventurous. Understanding your Enneagram type and those of others can significantly impact your daily life. So here are some practical ways that you can integrate this knowledge of your Enneagram type. First, you can develop more self-awareness and personal growth by identifying your patterns. Recognize your core motivations, strengths, and your challenges, and then use this insight to develop healthier habits and responses to your circumstances. You can also do this through practicing mindfulness. Pay attention to your reactions and emotions. Mindfulness helps you stay in the present and make conscious choices rather than reacting impulsively, maybe out of what your personality type would typically respond. A second way that you can use this knowledge is in your relationships. You can use the Enneagram knowledge to improve communication by understanding that others have different perspectives and motivations. This awareness can foster empathy and improve your communication skills. It can help you to resolve conflicts. You can use the Enneagram to identify underlying issues and work toward resolutions that respect each other's individual needs and viewpoints. And finally, you can use it in your work and your leadership. You can use it to enhance team dynamics by recognizing the diverse strengths and challenges within your team, and then assign roles and tasks that align with each person's natural abilities. You can use it to develop your own leadership skills by tailoring your leadership approach to support and motivate individual team members based on their Enneagram type. This personalized approach can really increase engagement and productivity because you are considering each person's unique traits and giftings. Now, let's look at some specific tips for each triad and each type within the triad. So first we start with the Instinctive or the Gut Triad. And we start with type 8, the Challenger. Some tips for the Challenger are to learn how to practice vulnerability and active listening. Consider part of being strong and courageous is a willingness to show some vulnerability. Take a risk and share your heart at a deeper level with someone in your life. Empower others by sharing some of the control rather than holding on to control all to yourself. And then find a trusted friend and actually give them permission to tell you when you are going overboard with your intensity or aggressive tendencies. For type 9, the Peacemaker, learn how to assert yourself and express your opinions. Set and maintain boundaries. Practice saying no. Resist the urge to fall back on passive-aggressive behaviors like procrastination or avoidance. If you feel angry, be honest and open about it. And the final type within the Instinctive Triad is type 1, the Reformer. The Reformer needs to learn how to embrace imperfections and practice some self-compassion. Focus on progress rather than perfection. Resist the urge to redo tasks done by others that don't quite meet your standards or expectations. Instead, try to catch people doing things right and tell them how much you appreciate them. Try to accept feedback, even criticism from others, without becoming overly defensive. Forgive yourself and others for making mistakes. Everyone makes them. Now we move on to the feeling triad, where we have types 2, 3, and 4. So for type 2, the helper, set boundaries and prioritize self-care. Ensure that your help is actually genuinely altruistic when you give it. Try not to reflexively say yes to everything. Instead, take time to consider whether you have capacity and if your motivation for saying yes is for the right reasons. For type 3, the achiever, cultivate authenticity and learn to balance work with your personal life. Embrace failure as a learning opportunity. Develop a practice of silence and solitude, though this might be especially uncomfortable because of the value you place on being active and productive. Try taking a vacation sometimes without bringing work along with you. Some practical tips for type 4, the individualist. This is the creative, introspective one. Practice gratitude and staying grounded in the present. Express your creativity in fulfilling ways. Beware of self-absorption and wallowing in your own suffering. And resist getting stuck in the longing for the ideal, and instead consider what is possible and take action, seeing it through all the way to the end. Finally, we have the thinking triad, types 5, 6, and 7. So some practical tips for type 5, the investigator. Engage with others and share your knowledge. Balance intellectual pursuits with some social activities. Try sharing a bit more about yourself and your life with others. And remember, you don't have to have the answers for everything. Some tips for type 6, the loyalist. Build self-confidence and seek reassurance when needed. Focus on actionable steps rather than all of the potential problems. Develop a regular practice of prayer and pray for faith to replace your fears. Practice accepting compliments. Learn to recognize the difference between legitimate fear and just free-floating anxiety. And finally, we have tips for type 7, the enthusiast. Tips for type 7 are to practice mindfulness and commit to long-term goals. Face challenges and challenging emotions rather than avoiding them. Practice restraint and moderation. Bring yourself back to the present when you find yourself fantasizing about or making too many plans for the future. I hope this recap of the Enneagram Triads and some practical tips for integration has been helpful. The Enneagram is a powerful tool for self-awareness and growth, and by applying its insights, you can enhance your personal life, your relationships, and your leadership skills. In some of our upcoming episodes, we'll continue to explore more about the Enneagram and how to use it effectively. If you're enjoying this series, be sure to follow the show and please consider leaving a review. Your feedback helps us grow the show and reach more listeners, even if it's just a word or two. And if you want even more in-depth exploration of the Enneagram and how to personally apply it to your life and leadership, I encourage you to book a free consult with me at gracefilledleader.com/work-with-me. And as always, my friends, I pray that the Lord fills you with gratitude, peace, and His amazing grace. I pray this episode blessed you, spoke to you, or encouraged you in some way. If so, please share it with a friend and head on over to Apple Podcasts to leave me a review. That's the only way for me to know if you're enjoying the show. Nothing blesses me more than to hear from you. Also, come on over to our free Facebook community. This is a great place for us to support one another on our faith and leadership journeys. You can find the link to the group in the show notes or go to gracefilledleader.com/community. If you have questions or content ideas for the show, please send me a message on SpeakPipe or via email. Go to gracefilledleader.com/contact and leave a written or voice recorded message. I would love to know how I can best serve you on the podcast. Now to Him who can do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. Ephesians 3, verse 20. Until next time, my friends, God bless.